poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another YouTube video, and today we're taking a look at another film review. Today we are taking a look at another horror movie film review. I'm gonna be honest, I went into a little bit of a horror movie sort of indulgence over on Netflix, and I added an absolute fuck ton of horror movies into my sort of watch list in Netflix, and I have just been like knocking them off one by one, and I've got quite a few more coming over the next couple of days. So if that is something that you are interested in, something that you're excited about, and something you want to hear me talk about more, definitely stay tuned over the next couple of days for me to have a little bit of a yap about them and express my opinion and what I think is good and bad about these upcoming movies, or movies that have been out for a while. So without any further delay, let's take a look at what Google has to say and get into our first movie. This movie is Choose or Die, and it is on Netflix, and only on Netflix. Netflix actually decided to make this movie, and it has a 4.8 out of 10 on IMDb, 31% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a broke student who plays an obscure 1980s survival computer game in pursuit of an unclaimed 100,000 prize. After a series of unexpectedly terrifying moments, she soon realizes she's no longer playing for the money, but for her own life. Right, how this story actually starts is with a dude who's got a kid and a wife, and they're arguing in the kitchen. He goes into the garage, pours himself a little bit of a brewski, and starts playing the game. He gets to round 2, and that's when we sort of see the game leave us and move to another protagonist. She is broke. She works for a cleaning company who cleans an office building, and she's cleaning it out, and goes home to her best mate's house, and she finds the game. She takes it to a cafe. She goes home to see her ill mother, who's mourning the death of her younger brother, who drowned at a pool, listening to his stuffed teddy over and over again, and then they, end up playing the game. Her mate doesn't show up, so she's playing it by herself, and a lot of bad shit happens. A nurse breaks a load of glasses and eats it because the game forces her to. Next night, her mother has to jump out of a roof because at 2 o'clock in the morning, the rats break out of the walls and sort of absolutely destroy the apartment, and she has to control the rats and try and get her mother out safely. Her mum jumps out the window and ends up in hospital. She goes to see the friend, and they wait it out till 2 a.m. tomorrow to play this next level, and when they do, it is them at a swimming pool going through a load of steam, and she has to choose to save the little brother or her best friend. She saves her best friend and has to suffocate her brother, which causes a fuck ton of trauma for her, and brings back some awful memories. She then goes to try and track down the phone call to where it's coming from, and she then tracks that down to a sort of fake address, which is hosting a sort of digital tape which tells you all about the game. They try and cheat, and then it ends up in her best friend being killed by throwing up a load of sort of tape. And then she goes, plays the final level, wins because she has a fight with a guy that we saw all the way at the start, and then she basically starts to control the game, and she wants to become a light Yagami and have control of the Death Note and torturing people who deserve it, and who only deserve it in her eyes. And that's the whole plot of the show. That's how it all sort of unfolds and how it all plays out. And I'm going to be honest, it isn't much horror, it isn't much suspense. Most of the horror is done off screen, as we see her mum being chased by a rat in a 2D platformer format, so it doesn't even look scary. We can only hear her terrifying screams, and that's about it. For the first one, the son having his tongue cut out also happens off screen. We only see his tongue missing. The second one, we see her murder her brother, but it isn't very gruesome or scary. Him jumping out of the fog for the first time actually caught me off guard and made me shit myself. But that was the only jump scare that got me. The rest of the horror was really poorly done. There was little to no tension between any of the characters or any of the situations, because it kinda didn't really build any. it didn't really build any tension. It kind of just threw you into the situation, threw you into the horror game, and it sort of rushed through it as well. It spent less time on the horror games themselves and more of them trying to work out the mystery of how this horror game works, with the rules and the symbols and her sort of trying to get out of it. She never ever fights for her own life in this series. She always fights for someone else's, because if she doesn't fight with someone else's, then she dies. That's the whole point of the game. You choose or you die. So you're playing with other people's lives to keep yourself alive, and that doesn't really do much in terms of building suspense, because the character that we get to know and love is forced to make these hard choices, but we don't really get to see these hard choices in action. We just get to see the outcome of it, and it just takes away the whole sort of tension, the whole building of the choice, and the whole excitement of it all, the whole sort of horror movie aspect. It's just kind of choices and outcomes. We never get to see like the options like in person until the final fight, and then it turns into more of an action movie. This is described as a horror movie, and I've said this in the past before, horror movies don't really scare me unless it's to do with real things and stuff that could happen realistically in real life. And a murderous game that can affect reality with a special curse isn't very realistic and isn't very scary, and they don't try and make it very scary either. It doesn't feel like they tried to make this scary and make these characters sort of be able to build this tension. The main character is a down-on-their-luck teen, which we're supposed to feel bad for, and we're supposed to feel like she's the underdog who's sort of coming up and forth to sort of save the day and save everybody. But we watch as everyone else around her dies, and she slowly turns more and more corrupt and turns to the bad side, and then has to choose the new players for herself to sort of torture them. And it kind of feels very cheap, very basic, and like they have a good idea but they didn't go with it. It's like they had this idea but they didn't have enough faith in it. And the reason that I wanted to watch this movie in particular is because I saw it on TikTok, and the one clip of this sort of game choice I really liked. On TikTok, this being my only interpretation and impression of the movie, of these characters sort of making choices for each other, I thought it'd be a really interesting sort of death game where you had to sort of get everybody else out alive, and we'd get to sort of maybe see some of the outcomes and see some of the situations. But no, that's not what this movie is. That's not what we get to see at all. It just boring, very basic, and there is other movies which could be a lot better, and other ideas that I've seen which are similar to this actually work out a lot better. This one it's very boring. Like, this one is a good premise, it's a good idea, like we haven't really seen many video game horror movies before, but they don't fully commit to the idea, and they turn it into a curse, and they make them play these games in real life, which turns it into a more of a Saw aspect. But then they don't even run with that, and they don't make it gory, they don't make us see these games, they make us see it through a video game aspect, and the video game's all pixelated, it's 2D, it's a platformer, and it's like a sort of yes-no type thing. It's like a Oregon Trail type game where you make choices based off the information that you are given, and that's pretty much it. It's very boring, it's very dry, and the characters don't really have any chemistry. Like, you don't feel bad when the characters die, you don't feel upset when the characters get injured or get hurt. It just sort of happens, and you're like a corrupted spectator on the whole thing, and I don't know, I just let it play and I let it happen, and that was that. I watched it and I felt nothing throughout all of it. It was very dry and very emotionless. The only thing that actually got me was that, again, that one jump scare that happened in the water bit where the sort of little brother did jump out of nowhere. He scared the shit out of me, and that was literally because I wasn't expecting it, and that was the biggest jump scare in the entire movie. I don't recommend you waste your time watching this movie. There is much better horror movies to watch that are out there and that you can spend your time doing. So this movie, unfortunately, isn't very high. I'm going to give it a solid 4 out of 10. I do hope you enjoyed this YouTube video though, even though it has been mostly negative. I hope you come back tomorrow for more film, TV shows, anime reviews, and if you do want me to review anything else, some of your favorite TV shows, movies, or animes, please do leave it down in the comments below, and I'll get onto it as quickly as possible. But other than that, bye-bye. I'm not a Marvel movie. You can watch something else now, by the way.